हेलो बच्चों, welcome back to MR classes GLP students. Today in this class we are going to solve some questions from Advanced Mathematics Class 9. Here chapter number 2, exercise number is 2.1. Question number 1, question says that fill the tables of truth values. Here number 1, a table is given. We have to fill this table. So let's first we see the table. Here two statements P and Q are given. That is in third column we have here P disjunction Q, then P conjunction Q, negation of P disjunction Q, negation of P conjunction Q, negation of P disjunction, negation of Q. So we have to fill this table. Now since here first row P is true, Q is also true, so disjunction will be true, conjunction of P and Q will also be true. Now since disjunction of P and Q is true, so negation of disjunction of P and Q will be false. Since it is true, so negation of this will be false. Now P is true, negation of P is false, and Q is true. So negation of P is false, Q is true. Conjunction of false and true will be false. Next, negation of P will be false and negation of Q will also be false. So disjunction of negation of P, disjunction negation of Q, result will be false. Next, P is true, Q is false. Then P disjunction Q will be true, P conjunction Q will be false. Since P disjunction Q is true, so negation of P disjunction Q will be false. Now P is true, so negation of P will be false, Q is false, so false conjunction false, result will be false. Next, negation of P. Since P is true, negation of P will be false. Disjunction, negation of Q, Q is false, so negation of Q will be true. So therefore it is false disjunction true, result will be true. Next here P is false, Q is true. Then disjunction of P and Q will be true, and conjunction of P and Q will be false. Since P disjunction Q is true here, so negation of P disjunction Q will be false. P is false, so negation of P will be true, and Q is true, so negation of P is true, Q is true, so therefore conjunction will be true. Negation P is false, negation of P true, Q is true, negation of Q is false, true disjunction false will be true. P false, Q false, negation of disjunction of PQ will be false, conjunction of PQ will also be false. Since P disjunction Q is false, so negation of P disjunction Q will be true. P false, negation of P will be true, Q false, so true conjunction false will be false. P false, negation of P is true, Q false, negation of Q is true, so therefore negation of P disjunction negation of Q will be true. Next, number B, here the table is given, we have to fill this table. So let's see, statements P and Q are given. Negation of P, since P is true, so negation of P will be false. Since Q is true, negation of Q will be false. P true, negation of Q is false, so conjunction will be false. Next, P true, Q true, P conditional Q will be true, but negation of P conditional Q, it is false. Negation of P false, negation of Q is also false. So therefore negation of P conditional negation of Q, it is true. Next, P true negation of P false, Q false negation of Q will be true. Now P true negation of Q is true, so conjunction will be true. P is true, Q is false, so P conditional Q will be false, but negation of P conditional Q, it is true. Negation of P false, negation of Q is true, so therefore negation of P conditional negation of Q will be true. P false negation of P true, Q true negation of Q will be false. P false negation of Q is false, so conjunction will be false. P false, Q is true, P conditional Q will be true, but negation of P conditional Q is false. Negation of P true, negation of Q is false, so negation of P conditional negation of Q will be false. P false negation of P will be true, Q is false negation of Q will be true. Now P is false negation of Q is true, so conjunction will be false. P conditional Q, P false, Q false, so conditional will be true, but negation of P conditional Q will be false. Negation of P true, negation of Q is also true, so conditional will be true. Next, students, we are going to fill up table number C. Here statements P and Q are given, so conditional P conditional Q, since P is true, Q is true, then P conditional Q will be true. P true, P conditional Q is true, so P conjunction P conditional Q will be true. Now P conjunction P conditional Q, it is true, and Q is also true here, so P conjunction P conditional Q, conditional Q again, so it will be true. That is, here we have to use conditional between this column and column second, that is column fourth and column second. Next, P true, Q false, so conditional will be false. P true and P conditional Q is false, so therefore conjunction will be false. Since it is false and Q is also false, so conditional will be true. P false, Q is true, P conditional Q will be true. P false, P conditional Q is true, so conjunction will be false. Since this one is false and Q is true, so conditional will be true. P false, Q false, P conditional Q will be true, and P false, P conditional Q is true, so conjunction will be false. Fourth column is false, second column is also false, so conditional will be